The moment she called me a guest in my own house, I was standing at the kitchen sink washing the breakfast dishes I had cooked for her. I remember the water was too hot. I remember thinking I should turn it down. But I just stood there with my hands turning red because what she had just said was still moving through my body like something I had swallowed wrong. I set down the sponge. I dried my hands on the dish towel that had hung from that same cabinet handle for 11 years, and I walked out of the kitchen without saying a single word. That was a Tuesday morning in March. By Friday, I had made a phone call that would change everything. But let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how we got there. My name is Harriet. I am 67 years old, and I spent 32 years as a school librarian in a small city in Georgia. I retired at 63 with a pension, a paid-off house, and more books than I had shelves for. My husband passed 11 years ago, a sudden heart attack, no warning, no chance to say goodbye, and after a year of adjusting to the silence, I made peace with living alone. Real peace. Not the sad kind, where you tell people you are fine and you are not. The kind where you wake up on a Saturday morning and make exactly 1 cup of coffee and sit by the window and feel, genuinely, that your life belongs to you. I had that. I want you to know I had that, before I gave it away. My son is 41. He is kind in the way that gentle men sometimes are. He means well, he tries hard, he apologizes when he hurts you. He called me every Sunday. He visited at Christmas and at Easter. He sent flowers on my birthday without me having to hint. I was proud of him in the uncomplicated way a mother is proud when her child turned out decent. His wife is a different story. Not because she is a bad person. I have thought about this long and hard, and I do not believe she is a bad person. I believe she is someone who, when given an inch, begins to believe the inch was always hers. She is 36, sharp, ambitious, and she has a way of saying things that sound reasonable until you think about them later in the quiet. Her name is Noelle. They had been living in an apartment in Atlanta for 7 years. When my son's company downsized, the whole department gone in one afternoon, they lost the apartment within 4 months. The lease ended and the savings ran thin, and my son called me on a Sunday, which was his usual day. But this call was different. His voice was different. He asked if they could come stay with me just for a little while, just until he found something new. I said yes. Of course I said yes. He is my son. They arrived on the second Saturday of November with 3 carloads of belongings and a plan to be back on their feet by spring. Spring came. Then summer. Then another November. For the first few months it was fine. Crowded, but fine. My house has 3 bedrooms and a large kitchen, and we found a rhythm. My son helped with yard work, and Noelle kept the living room tidy, and we ate dinner together most nights. It felt, in the way that unfamiliar things sometimes do, almost normal. But I noticed things. Small things at first. The way Noelle would rearrange items on the kitchen counter without asking, moving my coffee maker to the far corner, centering her own appliances where mine used to be, the way she began answering the door as though it were her house, even when I was sitting 20 feet away, the way she started referring to the guest bathroom as our bathroom, and the hallway closet as where we keep things. I told myself it was adjustment. People settle in, I thought. People get comfortable. I did not want to make her feel unwelcome. That was my first mistake. Not the only one, but the first. By the second spring, she had moved 2 pieces of my living room furniture to the garage without asking because she thought the arrangement opened up the space. My reading chair was one of them, the chair where I had spent every evening for a decade, the one with the good lamp beside it, and the small table where I kept my tea and my books. I found it next to the lawnmower. I brought it back inside. I did not say anything. I put it exactly where it had always been. A week later, it was back in the garage. I brought it in again. This time I said quietly that this was my chair and I would like it to stay where it was. Noelle looked at me with an expression I can only describe as patient. The way a person looks at a child who has said something incorrect but does not yet understand why. "I'm just trying to make this work for all of us," she said. "You have to understand, we live here, too." Yes, I thought, you live here, in my house, where you do not pay rent, where your groceries appear without discussion, where your utilities are covered by a pension I earned over 32 years. You live here. I did not say any of that. I nodded. I went to my room. My second mistake. There is something that happens to you when you stay quiet too long. The silence does not protect you. It teaches the other person that they can keep going. Every time I did not speak, Noelle moved a little further. Every time I excused it, she learned that excusing it was what I did. By the third year, she had a key hook by the front door with her keys and my son's keys and no hook for mine. She had a small whiteboard in the kitchen where she wrote a weekly meal plan for the kitchen in my house and began buying groceries according to it without asking me what I wanted. She had taken over the second living room shelf for her books and decorative items and pushed my photo frames to the mantel above the fireplace, which was higher than I liked, higher than I could easily reach. I began to feel like a boarder, not a guest, a boarder, someone who occupies a room, who is tolerated, who understands she is not quite supposed to be there. I began eating my breakfast before they woke up, to have the kitchen to myself for one quiet hour. I began going to bed earlier than I wanted to because the evenings in my own living room felt like sitting in someone else's space. I started visiting the library 3 afternoons a week, the library where I had worked for 32 years, where they still knew my name. Just to sit somewhere I felt certain I had a right to be. My son did not notice, or if he did not say. He was busy with a new job he had found, a good one, a relief, and I think he was focused on stabilizing himself, on being stable for Noelle, and the arrangement at the house had become background to him. Ordinary. He had stopped seeing what I saw. I did not tell him. I did not want to put him in the middle. I did not want to be the mother who caused problems. My third mistake. The morning she called me a guest in my own house, we had been talking about the dining room table. I had mentioned carefully that I would like to set it for a dinner I was planning with 2 old friends from work. Noelle said she had already planned to have someone over that same evening, a colleague of hers, important, someone she wanted to impress, and that she would need the dining room. I said the dinner with my friends had been arranged for 2 weeks. She said she had not known about it. I said it was my dining room table in my house and my dinner had been planned first. She looked at me and said in a voice that was very calm, very measured, "Harriet, you need to remember that you are not the only one living here. You are not. I don't know how to say this. You are not just the owner anymore. This is a shared home. You're a guest in the life we've built here, whether you want to see it or not. A guest in the life they had built. In my house." I stood at the sink with the hot water running. I dried my hands. I walked out. I did not sleep well for the next 2 nights. I lay in my room, in my house, the room where I had slept for 27 years, where my husband and I had talked quietly before going to sleep, where I had cried alone after he died, and I stared at the ceiling, and I felt something I had not felt in a long time. Not anger. Anger I could have used. This was smaller than anger and worse. It was the feeling of having made yourself invisible for so long that you begin to forget you were ever there. On Thursday morning, I called my oldest friend, a woman named June, who has known me since we were both 24 years old and had no idea what we were doing. I told her everything, not the edited version I had been telling people. Everything. All 3 years of it. When I finished, June was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Harriet, why are you asking her permission to live in your own house?" I did not have an answer. Call an attorney, she said. Not to be aggressive, just to know where you stand. You need to know your own ground before you can stand on it. I made the appointment the same day. The attorney was a woman in her 50s, straightforward and thorough. She asked me questions I had not thought to ask myself, whether there had been any written agreement, whether rent had ever been discussed and declined, how long they had been residing, whether they had changed anything structural about the property. She listened carefully, and then she explained to me, clearly and without drama, what my rights were. In the state of Georgia, because my son and daughter-in-law had been residing in my home for over a year with no formal lease, they were considered occupants with certain protections. To formally remove them, I would need to issue written notice, a specific number of days, a specific process. It was not what I had hoped to hear. But it was ground, real ground, legal ground, mine. I asked her to prepare the notice. She asked if I was certain. I thought about the reading chair in the garage. I thought about the key hook with no hook for my keys. I thought about eating breakfast alone in my own kitchen to avoid feeling like a boarder. I thought about the word guest. I said yes. The notice was hand-delivered on a Monday morning. I was not home when it arrived. June had come to pick me up, and we went to the botanical garden, which sounds like a strange thing to do on such a day, but it was exactly right. I needed to be somewhere green and open and mine in the way that public things are everyone's, which is its own kind of peace. My son called me before I had even reached the garden entrance. His voice was not angry. It was confused, and underneath the confusion there was something frightened, and under that I could hear the boy I raised. "Mom, what is this? What's happening?" I told him I loved him. I told him this was not about him. I told him that I had let something go on too long and that I needed to reclaim my own home, and that we would talk, really talk, but that I needed him to understand this was not a negotiation. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Did Noelle do something?" "Not a question exactly." I said, "We'll talk, but not today." I put the phone in my bag and June handed me a cup of tea from her thermos, the kind she has always made, too sweet and exactly right, and we walked through the roses. The weeks that followed were not easy. I will not pretend they were. My son was hurt in the way that good people are hurt when they discover they missed something important happening right in front of them. He came to see me without Noelle one evening, and he sat across from me at my own dining room table, the table I had wanted for my dinner with my friends, and I told him everything I had told June, all of it. The chair in the garage, the key hook, the meal plan on my whiteboard, the word guest. I watched his face as I talked. He did not interrupt. He did not defend her. He listened the way he used to listen when he was 12, and he had done something wrong, and he knew it, and he was trying to figure out who he wanted to be about it. When I finished, he said, "I'm sorry, Mom. I should have seen it." That was enough. That was more than enough. Noelle did not speak to me during the notice period. She moved through the house with a careful correctness, speaking when necessary, quiet otherwise. I think she had expected me to collapse, to retract it, to apologize. I had done that so many times before that it was a reasonable expectation. I did not collapse. I made my coffee in the morning in my kitchen with my coffee maker in the center of the counter where it belonged. I put my reading chair back in the living room by the window with the good lamp and the small table for my tea. I set my dining room table for dinner with my friends, and we ate and laughed, and it was the best evening I had had in 3 years. They found an apartment. It took 6 weeks, and some hard weeks between my son and me, and some harder ones between my son and Noelle, none of which I was present for. They moved on a Saturday in May, and when the last box was carried out and my son stood in the doorway looking like he was not sure what to say, I hugged him and told him I loved him, and told him that the Sunday calls were still the Sunday calls, and that nothing between us had changed. He held on longer than usual. Noelle did not say goodbye to me directly. She walked past me with a bag in each hand and got into the car. I did not take it personally. People who have been used to having more than they were given rarely say thank you when it is taken back. That evening, I sat in my reading chair by the window. I watched the light change across my living room, my light, my 11 years of small adjustments and chosen objects and accumulated quiet. My coffee maker was where it belonged. My photo frames were on the shelf, at the height I could reach. My key hung on a hook by the door that I had chosen, in the color I had chosen, for myself alone. I turned on the evening news, volume exactly where I liked it. There are things I would do differently. I have thought about them honestly, the way you can only do once the crisis has passed and you have the distance to see clearly. I would not let the first moved piece of furniture go without speaking. I would not confuse keeping peace with being peace. I would have understood sooner that allowing something to continue is not kindness, it is permission. Every time I stayed quiet, I was teaching Noelle what I would accept. I taught her well, and then I had to unteach her the hard way, which is always harder than the first lesson would have been. If you are in a house that is yours and something inside you is quietly counting the hours until you can be alone in it, hear that. That is not a small signal. That is the whole thing, the whole truth, telling you something has gone wrong. You are allowed to name what belongs to you. You are allowed to hold it. You are allowed to ask, calmly, legally, without screaming, for it back. My son calls me every Sunday. The calls are longer now, I think because he is listening more carefully. We do not talk about Noelle much. When we do, I speak honestly and without bitterness, because bitterness is too heavy to carry at 67, and I have too many books to read and too many Saturday mornings of one perfect cup of coffee to spend that energy. June came for dinner last week. We sat at my dining room table with the good candles and talked until nearly midnight about nothing important and everything that mattered. I woke up Sunday and made my coffee and sat by the window and felt genuinely and completely that my life belonged to me. I had that once. I gave it away for a while. I took it back. You are allowed to take it back. I have had a lot of time to think about what happened in that house. Not obsessively. I am not built for obsession, and at 67, I have learned that turning something over and over in your mind does not change its shape, only wears you down. But I have thought about it honestly, the way you can when the noise is finally gone and you are sitting in your own chair again and there is nothing left to brace for. What I keep coming back to is this: nothing. Noelle did happen without my cooperation, not a single piece of it. Every time I brought my chair back inside without saying a full sentence about it, I was agreeing to the terms. Every time I ate my breakfast early to avoid the discomfort of my own kitchen, I was signing something. I thought I was keeping the peace. What I was actually doing was writing the rules, just not the ones I wanted. That is the part no one tells you about allowing things. You think you are being gracious. You think you are the bigger person, the patient one, the one who understands that relationships require accommodation. And sometimes that is true. But there is a line, and it is not always a loud, dramatic line, where accommodation becomes erasure, where you have accommodated yourself right out of your own life. I crossed that line somewhere around the second year when the reading chair went to the garage for the first time and I said nothing. That was the moment, not the word guest, not the dining room argument, the chair. Because in that moment I taught Noelle something she did not forget, that I would absorb it, that my discomfort was not a signal she needed to respond to. We teach people how to treat us, not with speeches, with what we allow to continue. My son is a good man who was looking in the wrong direction. I do not hold that against him the way I once might have. He was trying to hold his own life together after a hard year, and somewhere in that effort he stopped looking at me with the careful attention a child owes a parent who has opened her home. That is not a small failure. but I also did not help him see it. I protected him from the truth for 3 years because I did not want to cause trouble, and in doing so, I denied him the chance to be the person he actually is, the person who sat across from me at my dining room table and listened without interrupting and said I should have seen it. He needed to see it. I needed to let him. Here is what I believe, not from any doctrine or tradition, but from 67 years of watching how life actually works. What we do catches up with us, not in a dramatic, punishing way, just quietly, naturally, the way water finds the low point. Noelle treated a generous woman's home like a territory to be claimed, and she lost it. My son looked away when he should have looked closer, and he had to sit across a table from his mother and reckon with that. I stayed silent when I should have spoken, and I spent 3 years feeling like a stranger in my own house. Every one of us was living inside the consequences of our own choices. That is not punishment. That is just how things are. What saved me was not anger, it was clarity. The moment June asked me why I was asking permission to live in my own house, something shifted. Not dramatically, just settled. Like a picture frame someone finally levels on the wall after you've been looking at it crooked for so long, you stopped noticing. Clarity is its own kind of courage. You do not have to shout. You do not have to perform. You just have to see the thing clearly and then act like someone who has seen it. I took my house back with a phone call and a legal notice and a walk through a botanical garden on a Monday morning. I did not raise my voice once. I did not have to. If there is anything I want you to hear from this story, it is that your discomfort inside your own life is information. It is telling you something. The quiet counting of hours, the early breakfasts, the feeling of being a boarder in the space you built, that is not nothing. That is everything, and you are allowed to listen to it. You are allowed to act on it. You are allowed to take it back.